U.S. President Donald Trump has taken a tough line on Iran since taking office in January of last year. He has been highly critical of the nuclear deal between Iran and the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany. Trump, who's developed close ties with Saudi Arabia and Israel, both hostile to Iran, wants other parties to the nuclear deal to scrap it. Back in October, Trump refused to certify Iran's compliance with the landmark nuclear agreement to Congress. He, however, renewed temporary waivers for many U.S. sanctions against Iran so that America technically remains a party to the atomic deal. Trump faces the same deadlines this month on whether to certify Iran's compliance and renew the waivers. The deadlines are looming as tensions between Washington and Tehran have escalated over the U.S. president's tweets on recent protests in Iran. Over the past week, Iranian cities saw protests against economic hardship and alleged corruption. They began peacefully, but turned into riots in many places, leaving casualties. Groups of rioters damaged public property and attacked security personnel and government buildings. The Iranian government said that the people have the right to protest peacefully, but rejected violence. The situation apparently provided ammunition for foreign powers, which intend to pile pressure on Iran. The U.S. president was among the very first foreign officials to comment on the protest. He expressed support for the demonstrators. Trump's comments were echoed by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Experts believe that Trump will use the recent protests as a case against a nuclear deal with Iran.
For Trump to say, okay, there's rights violators, and that's cause enough for us to be able to tear up the JCPOA. It really, the sober observer of what's happening in Iran has to then ask if the riots, if the protesters were not involved or were not stoked by Western intelligence or by other means of Western intervention and interference into internal Iranian affairs in order to have a reason, a perceived reason to then complain to the wider European community and UN and wider global community with regard to something that the Europeans have already adamantly and repeatedly stated, as have Russia and China, is fine, namely the status of the JCPOA.
Trump and Netanyahu's provocative comments on social media seem to have backfired. The riots in Iran have largely died down. Trump's interventions seem to have fueled anti-American sentiments across Iran.
These attempts through stoking unrest are proving futile and further showing the West that the majority of Iranians are actually loyal to the order within Iran, as well as to the means of being able to resolve issues, be they political, be they economic, domestically. And it is a right hand to the left hand of consistent election results, where you have people voting in elections to show the representative form of government that's over there.
In a show of solidarity with the establishment, tens of thousands of Iranians nationwide staged mass rallies on Wednesday. Observers believe the majority of Iranians, even those grappling with economic difficulties, know full well that any solution to their problems has to come from inside the country, not outside. The coming weeks are crucial for those observing the developments in Iran and tensions between the United States and the Islamic Republic.